Good morning. We're now going to start the presentation. We can have your attention, please. Thank you so much for coming this morning. Today we have Mr. Petros Vamvakas. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Petros Vamvakas. A few words. Mr. Petros Vamvakas is actually the director and created the Institute of Eastern Mediterranean Studies in Emanuel College. And he's going to talk about the Greek resistance. He has a PhD, has a lot of experience, and please give him your time and attention so that we can just promote and recognize our Hellenic heritage. Kalimera and Kaiso.
Good morning, everybody. I just switched to English. It's a great pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. And I just want to sort of like say, how grateful I am for this invitation for a number of reasons. I'm 59 years old. I grew up in Greece, and we celebrated every year. We did the parades. It was, and I give you my age to give you a sense of like when I grew up in Greece in the late 60s and the early 70s. So this celebration was very proximate to us. We had grandfathers, we had fathers who, were very familiar with what happened on the 28th of October 1940. And a lot of times we celebrated, and over time, sort of like lost our bearing as far as what we celebrate. So now we celebrate, and we don't necessarily know what we're celebrating. So, let me finish my thought later. When we celebrate this events, it's great to really put them in some kind of a frame. And what I'm hoping to do today, much to your chagrin, we put an academic up here and given him 30 minutes to speak, and that doesn't necessarily work, but I'm going to try to do it in 30 minutes. Try to put this event of 1940 in the framing that we can all understand, hopefully, rather than just something that's floating out there. A lot of people in Greece, even today, they have a difficult time knowing what the 25th of March was versus what the 28th of October is. And, it's asking a lot for people today to really put some kind of a context to this. And I hope I do that in a little bit and have a conversation. So I'm supposed to read the statement concerning the fact that this presentation has occurred in Annunciation Woburn facilities is not a blessing of war or the taking of human lives, even those of our oppressors. Such actions are always an affront to humanity and to God himself. And I would co-sign this, and I heard the great priest and what he said in church today, and I think it's very apropos to what's going on in the world today. And it's a matter of remembering that a lot of these things that we have seen historically, we also see in our present life, and I think it makes my presentation even more pronounced in the fact that when we're looking at history, we know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, because usually the winners write history. So we're very clear in the decisions we make. In 1940, that was not necessarily that clear. But before that, I want to give everybody a context as to what Greece we're talking about. A lot of people go to Greece every summer. A lot of people see Greece today, a fairly affluent country, number 25 or 26 in wealth in the world. You might not think it that way, but Greece is an affluent country. But the country of 1940 was nothing like that. The country of 1940 came from a long struggle of establishing itself. So I just want to go a little bit backwards to go forward. So all of us know that Greece is established as a modern state in 1830. And it's established as a modern state with autonomous structure, meaning that there was not necessarily independent, fully independent, but it was autonomous. And it took about 100 years to really create the framing of the Greece that we know today. After 1923, a very painful period, a very painful struggle. But Greece today that we know, or the Greece that was established after 1923, was a Greece that was the biggest geographically, but the smallest national or ethnically. There's a difference between Greece and Hellenism. Hellenism was vast. Hellenism was something that there were Hellenes that were throughout the Mediterranean basin, throughout the Black Sea, all the way from today's Georgia to today's Marseille, all the way from the Danube River, all the way to the Nile River. But the Greece that was established in 1923 is a geographically large state, but very small as far as Hellenism is concerned. And that's defined by the Treaty of Lausanne. And we hear a lot about the Treaty of Lausanne. Our neighbors, Turkey, brings it up all the time. But this is a treaty that happened 100 years ago, and it really establishes a Greek state as we know it today, with the exception of the Dodecanese Islands, who were added on to Greece in 1947. So Greece of the 1920s and 30s is a place of refugees, of poverty, of really a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. Greece that has been in war from 1913 to 1923 with tremendous losses, the fatigue of war. We're the people that really fought the lumps. We fought 2 Balkan wars, and then we fought the First World War, and then we fought to take Asia Minor, to lose it forever. So by the 1930s, Greece was a country in tremendous turmoil, political turmoil, whether we should have a monarchy or not, whether we should, be with this ally or that ally. But Greece also has a blessing and a curse. The blessing and the curse of Greece is where it is geographically. We are at the linchpin of the Eastern Mediterranean. We are the country, we are the real estate, if you wish, that really connects 3 continents. We talk about it all the time, but it's true. Africa, Asia, Europe, they cross over there. If anybody wants to move, even today, in that part of the world, they would have to go through Greek soil. Turkey cannot become an empire as it envisions unless it takes control of the Aegean today. Any country in the region, the United States cannot be the United States in the region unless it has Suda Bay today. And that was the case even in the 1930s. But in the 1930s, there were 2 countries that were really vying for that space. And it's not what you think. One was Great Britain, because Great Britain owned the Mediterranean. It was their space, since Trafalgar. And the other was Italy. Italy with Mussolini envisioned itself as a successor to Venice, as a successor to the Roman Empire. And for it, Greece and that Greek space, that Eastern Mediterranean space, was fundamental to becoming a great power itself. So you have 2 grand states fighting over the Mediterranean, nothing new. But at that point, in the 1930s, for the Greeks, it was an issue of this country, of these people who were trying to find their footing after disaster to come together. And we could see the clouds of war coming, similar to what we're seeing right now. There were all kinds of wars and fighting taking place throughout. And the Greeks were getting ready as best as they possibly could. As I said, we had political turmoil throughout. And in 1939, we have the beginning of the war with Germany invading Poland. And the signs were there. And the Italians were moving on the Greeks. And the first incident is an incident that all of us who are older might know. On the 15th of August, 1940, we have an event that's really captures the attention of the Greeks, because on the 15th of August is the Dormition of the Virgin Mary. And on that day, celebrating the Virgin Mary and the Dormition of the Virgin Mary on the island of Tinos, an island in the Cyclades, where the Italians also have aspirations at the time. The Cyclades, some of you might know, they're a large Catholic population, still there. And the statement made by the Italians to the Greeks was by thinking of the worship and on that day. It really caught the attention of everyone. Now this is 1940. For some of you who are more familiar with U.S. history, this is like a year and a half before Pearl Harbor. Put it in context in something that we understand as Americans today. And really that was something that brought, everybody's attention. But Greece couldn't do anything. They just had to investigate and find out who did it, but they knew who had done it. And the next incident is, of course, the highlight of Ohi Day, as we say. And it comes on the 28th of October, 1940. This is the day we celebrate, the 28th of October, 1940, that we commemorate. But this is just a stop in sort of like this defiance by the people not to be pushed anymore. I have to tell you that, for the Greeks, for the Hellenes, Greece is the last stop. It's the last stop. They had lost everything. They had lost the Black Sea area. They had lost Asia Minor. They had lost Marseille. They had lost. Greece is the last stop. So on the 28th of October, when the Italian ambassador goes and sees the Prime Minister of Greece, Metaxas, his house, Metaxas has no choice. Metaxas' statement is in French. Allô, c'est la guerre. We have war. That's what it means in French. That allô, c'est la guerre is converted in a popular no, in a popular ohi. Metaxas never says ohi. He says, I guess we are at war. But he never says ohi. The people who say ohi, people who say no, is the people of Greece, that ragtag of refugees, of impoverished, who find dignity within the fact that we are the last stop. And then we have this massive mobilization. Not a mobilization that the state orders, the mobilization that happens from the ground up. It's a groundswell. And the mobilization takes shape and form in bringing together all kinds of factions. This is a very divided place. We are a civil war society. Sometimes we forget that, but it's important to remember so we don't drive ourselves to that again. This moment in 1940, all the way to 1941, which I'm going to go into a little later, is a point of coming together. And we see this. We see it in the women. There's nothing like the women of Ibiza. It's a total society at war. This is not men going to war. This is women going to war. This is young people going to war. Old people going to war. This is people, young kids who say that they're a little bit older than they are just to enlist, going to war. And after the 28th of October, by November 14th, the front is reversed. The Italian divisions that are in Greece, by the 14th of November, have been pushed back. And not only have they pushed back, they've been pushed back 16 miles inside Albanian space, 16 miles within northern Ibiza. Because in the minds of Greeks, the whole space is still their land, their territory. And this is what captures the imagination of everyone, including here in the United States, including across the world, and the famous the famous quote by Winston Churchill. Hence, we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks. That recognition was very, very important. Because, you know, this is maybe not the place or the point we can talk about this, but this is something that I think it really needs mention. We have an identity crisis as Greeks. We are either Greeks, Hellenes, Romi, and that identity crisis is very significant. It's significant because a Greek is somebody that is under the yoke of somebody else. A Hellene is somebody who has to do with antiquity. Romios is an imperial identity, right? It's the Byzantine identity that we have. Up to that point, we were just Greeks. We were people who have been put asunder. The recognition at that point, and the epsilon you see on the right hand side, like Life magazine, is the beginning of recognition that something is there that speaks to the resistance. Now, I should also say that this time, this is December of 1940, a year before Pearl Harbor. Greece is the only other country other than Great Britain that is at war with the Axis powers. And this is the first time that the Axis powers are pushed back. I should also mention to you that in May of 1940, some 7 months earlier, France had been overtaken within days. But Greece was fighting back. And by February of 1941, this is the front, from Himara all the way up to Woburn, 16 miles in. 16 miles in. And this is sort of like where the front ends by mid-February. But something else dramatic happens at the end of January, actually, of 1941. One more. Thank you. The death of Prime Minister Petros. Just started out of the, no, he wasn't sick. But one day it's announced at the end of January that he's dead. There are all kinds of rumors about this. We still don't know exactly what happened. Who does it? Maybe it's a British, something else, maybe it's an Asian, maybe it's one of those, Kennedy-esque mysterious things, is he assassinated or not? Nonetheless, Vamvakas dies. And that is presumed at the time that it will really weaken the Greeks. But it doesn't. Normally it doesn't. The spring offensive by the Italians that starts at the end of February of 1941 is met now with a great resistance. 28 Italian divisions, 14 Greek divisions. Right on that line. Mussolini comes down to watch the Greeks be defeated, just like Xerxes does thousands of years earlier. There's a hill 731. The hill after the bombardment goes down 5 meters. That's how heavy the bombardment was. They lowered the hill by 5 meters, 15 feet. The loss of life there is tremendous. 7,948. 7,948. Some of them still unknown today. The no is not just what is heard in Kifisia, but the no is said in the battlefield. And I think that battle, something that we don't pay that much attention to, the battle of March of 1941 is key. It is that battle of 1941 and the fact that the Italians cannot advance that outrages Hitler. It outrages Hitler because now those German soldiers that were aimed to go to Romania and secure the oil fields of Romania have to be diverted. And they have to be diverted and go to Greece. Because if you cannot secure Greece, you have a problem in the Eastern Mediterranean. And the problem in the Eastern Mediterranean, which is key, is the Suez Canal. The Italians, remember, are in Libya. The Italians have aspirations in the Eastern Mediterranean. They drove all these divisions in Albania, allowing the British to take over Suez Canal, allowing the British to control Cyprus, allowing the British to control Malta. Cyprus, Malta, and the Suez Canal never fall in the heads of the Germans throughout the Second World War. So on May 6th, we have a second round, or a third round, depending on how you count it. On May 6th, we have the invasion of Greece by Germans, coming into Athens, really cutting off the Greek soldiers that are in the Albanian front. As they're coming in from Bulgaria, the front breaks in Bulgaria. They come all the way down to Thermopylae. And the Greeks sign an agreement, and the Germans come into Athens. And the soldiers from Albania walk home. They walk home. Frostbitten, or they walk home. And they walk home all the way to Crete. All the way to Crete. They go to walk in Peloponnese, catch boats and ships, go to Crete. As Crete becomes the battlefield. Operation Mercury, May 20th, 1941. Another no. This is the biggest operation ever as far as paratroop operations are concerned. Over 24,000 paratroopers in a single day. Over 4,000 dead in a single day. 4,000 dead. And then you see that resistance. See the top right there with the Cretans by hand attacking the German soldiers. Most of the Cretan men are in the Albanian front. Most of the weaponry is not there because they have been de-weaponized by the Metaxas government. That's why if you go to Crete today, everybody has guns. They use up their guns in Crete. And then you can see the headlines, the Herald and the Boston Daily Globe, as far as the significance of that resistance. Of course, by June 1st, Crete collapses. And the British flee. And the occupation begins. And I would say that that's the biggest no. And it's the no to dignity and a no to be able to live your life as a human being and not be occupied in your own home and not to be violated in your own home. And I think as a population, the Greek population, during the occupation, suffered the greatest losses per capita. We lost 10% of the population, 1941 to 1944, when Athens was liberated on October 12, 1944. Because of the resistance, because of the no, because of the allowing or standing up for your home, standing up for your own dignity. Of course, this resistance on the part of the Greeks forced the Germans to start Operation Barbarossa on June 22nd, 1941. No, June 22nd, 1941. Again, 1 month for Pearl Harbor. Operation Barbarossa, of course, is the invasion of the Soviet Union, which really bogs the Germans down in a horrible, horrible winter in Belarus and Ukraine, never being able to reach Moscow or Stalin. The biggest story, I think, about this resistance is the fact that even today, I want to echo what we said earlier today. Even today, our biggest challenge is to really maintain our dignity and our humanity and all the things that are in front of us. Because history is very clear sometimes what side we would be on, but it's more difficult to make choices and resist when things are uncertain. But I think what this whole story is about is, and that's why we celebrate it. In some ways, in Greece, we are one of the few countries that I know of that has 2 Independence Days. We celebrate the 25th of March, then we celebrate this. But we forget why we celebrate this. And we celebrate it because this is the most popular or populist or more common sense of speaking up and saying, no, we're going to determine our own lives. Every other time, we can argue about whose determination it was, which was very clear. So everyday people that said no to being imposed upon in any way, shape, or form. And the price that they paid was heavy. Mass executions, entire villages completely disappeared. But the ideas cannot be eliminated by violence. And the process of no is not just to be difficult. The process of no is to find the humanity in your resistance. Thank you very much. Yeah, if there are any questions or comments or, say being in a class, I guess.
I have a question that I learned a lot today. I thought your lecture was outstanding because of some detail. 2 questions I have. The Ella ship, whose ship was that? Was that a Greek ship that got that sunk, or was that one of the?
I would say the Greek warship, the Torpilata.
So we had at that time Greece did have a navy that had sunk, right?
Greece always had a navy. Greece always had a navy, even when there was not a Greek state. See, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing even today, we just sort of conflate about identity, right? We conflate the Greek identity with the state identity. That's why I try to make the difference. Right? The Greek state, as we know, the geographic entity of Greece that we see on the map today, has never existed prior to 1923. Right? The modern state is a modern formation. But Greeks as a people were seafaring people, so they always had ships. Now the Greek state at this time, of course, has really a fairly strong navy going back to the First World War and prior to the First World War. If it wasn't for our ships at this time, we wouldn't even have the Aegean Islands. It was the Averos, the purchase of the Averos, earlier on by Venizelos, that allowed the Dubiotis to block the Ottomans from coming down and really in the Second Balkan Wars taking some of those islands. Yes, we have a fairly strong navy, but not to the point of the Italians. The Italians are much more advanced at this time. And of course, it's a fast state that really militarization and mechanization is a big thing.
Just to follow up the second point that you made about it was a ground up fence that the documentary came up with the stop the kind. Who led that? Did it turn out that Greek generals then did it, or was it just totally ad hoc?
It was a groundswell, it was ad hoc. I mean, Greece in the 1930s is just a hot as boiling over. Forget about the issues that we're having today about immigration, refugees, asylum seekers. Here's a country of about 7 million people, right? About 3 million of them all refugees, speaking different languages. Maybe they were Christian, maybe they were not. Some of them were speaking Turkish, but they were Christian. Some of them were Christians, and Greece was a foreign place. So last week, 2 weeks ago, we saw like the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh. They're thrown out without the international community saying anything. Shame on us. And they said, go to Armenia. And they said, I don't know Armenia. I'm not from Armenia, I'm from Nagorno-Karabakh. So these people that found themselves in the Greek space had very little to do with the Greek space. And they were pushed upon and they were like, viewed in a negative way, they were called all kinds of names. But they found their redemption, if you wish. It showed their Hellenism by really dying for this idea of the streets.
There's no leadership in terms of like how to fight these,
Well, they the terrorists. But I mean, you didn't need like a mass mobilization, like, you've seen right now in Russia, for instance, who says, let me call out 300,000 men, and they can see like 200,000 of them going to the border and leaving. So it's not like a war of an expansion. This is people fighting for their own homes, fighting for the last spot. They have been kicked everywhere, so this was the last spot. Italians. The Italians and the Ottomans had fought a couple of wars, 1912 and 1917, and the Italians had defeated the Ottomans. So not only the Dodecanese, but Asia Minor across the Dodecanese was Italian. That was an Italian sphere of influence. So the Italians wanted to connect Libya, Ethiopia, and if they could get Suez, they really become the masters of the Eastern Mediterranean. So the Italians are the ones that own them. And even if you go to Rhodes today, I've been to Rhodes, beautiful medieval city in Rhodes, with the Knights of St. John. Lots of history there. They left and they went to Malta. But the person that restores Rhodes to this kind of like grandiose structure is Mussolini. The Rhodes that we see today is a remake of Mussolini. Because Mussolini looks at Rhodes as the place where naval power is established. Most of the naval codes that we have today go back to Rhodes. The beginning of the European Union goes back to Rhodes. Rhodes does not fall to the Ottomans until 1527. Constantinople falls in 1492. This far away from the Ottoman system. It's not until Suleiman the Magnificent that Italians. So yeah. I think we have, I think those are difficult things, like, we can go back, that's what I mean, like, we can go back and celebrate this. I know it, and maybe I should change it probably. In my sense, is like, nobody gets up in the morning and says, oh, I'm gonna be evil today. I think that what scares me the most is that people do all kinds of things because they think they're doing the right thing. And that's even scarier. Because all war criminals, when they're brought to trial, they say, I did it for my people. And when we make decisions like this, like the 300 Orochi or our own 300 Orochi, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And sometimes we don't have the courage of conviction. And I think that's the difficult thing. So I don't know, I can't say.
One last comment from Yaras Granas.
About the Middle East.
another election.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it simple because I feel strongly about this. The term Middle East is a political term. The term Middle East was invented in 1916 when the U.S. became up to that point it was the Near East. So whenever we talk about Middle East, Near East, we're not talking about a real place, we're talking about our conception of it. It's all political. That's Western Asia. That's Eastern Mediterranean. And then I look at it as a Middle East, I look at it just geopolitically. I don't see people in it. I have to see the people in it. That's what that Ohi Day was about. You can have designs on my land, but I will die for my land.
Thank you everyone for attending. And before I hand out, whoever's interested in the pop quiz, instead of me going around and giving pieces of paper to everyone, show me your hand if you'd like to participate before we go to the 3 questions. But before everyone leaves, we have lawn signs for our Euro Fest. So please feel free and take a lawn sign to your house. This is an important fundraiser for the church. All that. So just show of hands, who would like to participate in our little pop quiz? Okay. Okay, I see some hands. I'm gonna come over